Okay, ready? Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the importance of our First Nation community partners. We value their cultures, their histories, and their relationships with all of us and all other First Nation people. So I would like to have the approval of the agenda. There are 4 addendum items that you received at 2 o'clock. The first is the removal of item number 6, the Shore Road concession allowance has been removed and will be brought back at a later date. Number 9C is being added with an urgent replacement of the arena condenser for the ice rink. Number 10 is the invitation to the Parry Sound Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards, which we will ask for volunteers who want to go. And then in the closed session, there are the 2 items added. One is a human resources matter, and the other is discussion of the West Parry Sound Recreation and Culture Center. Are there any comments? May I have an approval of the agenda with those addendum items in? Can I see a show of hands? Thank you. So we will approve the agenda. I hope you all had a good weekend, and I want to say special congratulations to the organizers of the Foley Fall Fair. They had great connections in terms of weather, but they also had good, fabulous activities. I don't know how many kids built birdhouses, but they were leaving in droves, and there was lots of fun to be made. And I hope this is kind of the beginning. As a little girl, I remember the Foley Fall Fair with horse jumping and a big deal, and then it kind of petered out. So this Saturday was busy, and I think everybody that attended had a good time. We have a really full agenda this afternoon: budget issues, wellness center, critical discussions, and a vaccination policy. So I'm going to assume that everybody has read and understood all of the agenda package and what is on and off the table. I will be, when we get into the business, I will be welcoming. Somebody's got feedback. Is everybody on mute that is not speaking? Councillor Osborne, could you mute your phone?
I had difficulties getting on. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. So we will be welcoming members of the Finance Committee, and I'm going to ask them and all of Council to keep all of our remarks to the point. Each councillor will be acknowledged once on each agenda item, and I ask us not to repeat ourselves. I remind you, probably you don't need to be reminded, that we have 1 year left in our term. So I urge you to consider some of the things that we have accomplished to date and the dollars that we've brought into the region. And we have changed the way internet is being delivered, more slowly than we'd like. We have brought some dollars into the business park, and I hope today we'll talk about some dollars coming towards the West Wellness Center. So the province and the federal government are definitely investing in our region because they see it growing. So as we go into the budget discussions, I remind you to keep everything strategic and to think about what you want your legacies to be. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? I see none, so we move on. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of Council held on August 23rd, 2021, as circulated. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat
I so move that motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Cole?
Second that motion.
All in favor of approving the minutes? Thank you, and that is carried. Okay, so I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matter. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0008-R for McCormack. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
Yeah, I moved that, Mayor, sorry.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
I second that.
All in favor of moving into public meeting? Thank you. Council will now hold a public meeting for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to passing a zoning bylaw. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment who has not submitted such a request in writing should provide their full name and address to the clerk. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, formerly the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0008-R for McCormack is to amend the existing village commercial exception 18, C1-18 zone on the subject lands to permit retail space on the first floor and a one-bedroom accessory apartment dwelling unit on the second floor of the existing building on the subject lands. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on August 18, 2021. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application?
No one has registered to speak to this application.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
Correspondence has been received from the Ministry of Transportation Ontario stating no objections.
Does council have any questions? Thank you. Council will now close the public meeting and reconvene the regular. Oh, sorry, Councillor Moffat, I didn't see the yellow hand. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, I was just trying to find out. I only had one question related to this, is whether, I presume there's a building permit or something ongoing or outstanding, and I don't know who would be able to address that, given that it looks like they're going to be doing some site alterations. And I'm happy that.
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks, Your Worship. In terms of building permit application, a building permit application will be required for the interior modifications of the building. Really what this application is about is that currently the site-specific zoning permits 8.6 square meters of retail space. It's proposed to have 31 square meters of retail space, but also add permission for parking.
Do we know what kind of a business it's going to be?
I think have that here. Just 1 second here.
You could turn your volume up a little bit, Jamie. We're having trouble hearing you.
Okay, I will speak louder. Just 1 second here. CAO just texted me the same comment, so I will be louder. I believe it was a bookstore, if I'm not mistaken, but it was, I believe that was what the use was.
Okay, but the ground floor will remain commercial, as I understand it. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
So, we have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matter is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. That's the zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0008-R. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move the motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
All in favor? Thank you. So I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-068, being a bylaw to amend Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-020-001-01101, application number R 2021-0008-R for McCormack at 1,151 Highway 141 is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
Second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, so we are going to move to the delegations. I believe Mr. White is being admitted now. Good afternoon, Mr. White. Mr. White, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, welcome to council, and you have the floor for 10 minutes we have received your documents, but you also have 10 minutes as a delegate if you'd like to speak to your issue.
I think the paper I handed, I forwarded, pretty much states the position I think I have, or where I'm at. I'm not sure that I really have anything else to add to that.
Okay. Does council have any questions of Mr. White?
Yeah, I do. Hang on.
Councillor Fellner.
So, Mr. White, the alleged infraction here is in regards to an existing landscaping feature that you repaired in 2019.
Correct.
Okay, but you didn't alter it, you just repaired it or replaced it?
Yeah, so it was a pathway across the property on the way down to the lake that was treacherous. It was not a flat pathway, it was sloped. And next to it was a fire pit area that had been set up on the rock with some cinder blocks and rocks and things. And it wasn't very safe. You couldn't really sit around it. And so I made the ground level and fixed it.
And you did the work yourself?
Yeah, I worked with the contractor.
Okay.
The next step on a delegation like this, Mr. White, is for all of your information and your photographs to be referred back to staff, who will then come back to council with a recommendation of how to handle it. So I appreciate the time you've put in to sending us the pictures and your point of view, and I will now hand it back to our Chief Administrative Officer for a staff report to come back to council. Councillor Osborne? You have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My hand's not working. Zoom's changed or something. question, Mr. White, on the new fire pit location. I
Yes,
understand where the old one was. Where was the new to be?
if the new fire ring would be directly above where the old fire ring was.
So on where the existing path is right now?
So the existing path, like the area is like 1/3 pathway, 2/3 where the fire pit area is.
Right.
And the actual ring of the fire pit would be more or less directly above where the previous fire pit was.
On levels. Did you hear me?
Sorry, I'm just hearing some,
More
Hearing you, Councillor Osborne.
level spot.
If I was going to interpret what you just said,
There's some-
Mr. White, that would put the
going on
fire on the
on
other
Zoom.
side of the line.
Man, on a level spot. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I can't hear you now.
Messed up.
Okay, sorry.
Something wrong with Zoom.
Mr. White, if I was to interpret it that where on page, your green circle of the fire pit would be on the opposite side of the orange line from where it was originally?
Just one second here. Let me just pull up that photograph.
The one with the orange line and the green circle?
Yeah, just give me 1 second here. Yeah, so inside the green circle would be the fire pit. The yellow line represents the concrete retaining wall I put in. And the orange is the path that was there before. All those stairs have been replaced because they were crumbling as well.
Councillor Fellner, do you still have your hand up, or again?
Yeah, I still have it up because I forgot to take it down, sorry.
Thank you. So, Mr. White, thank you for coming to council and showing us your diagrams and the pictures, and we will await a staff report on next steps. Do you want to speak to that?
I think Councillor Osborne would like to take another shot. I think he's...
Have you got your questions answered, Councillor Osborne?
No, I'm still looking for the yellow line, Mayor.
Oh,
I have a green circle and an orange line.
there was a yellow sort of like rectangle, not quite closed rectangle that just goes around the circle.
Okay, it doesn't appear to be, I can barely see it. So my question before was, Mr. White, is the fire pit going to be on where the orange path is now, on a more level piece of land?
Yes. Yes.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Osborne?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So, over to staff. Okay. Thank you very much for attending, Mr. White, and you can stay in touch with staff if you want to hear the status as we move forward. Who should we contact? Bylaw?
Yep.
It would be our Chief Bylaw Officer, Don Hood, that you would contact for progress on this. Okay, thank you. So we are going to move into the strategic planning and budget discussions. And as indicated in the correspondence we received from our Chief Administrative Officer last week, these discussions are to be strategic in focus, not project-based. We've been asked to list projects in writing for him by the end of this week. So, Jason, I'm going to ask you to kick this off, and Andrea, you're going to let in the members of the Finance Committee that are waiting.
So we have Craig Reese is there, Jim Beatty was in the waiting room, and I admitted him, but I can't.
I can
oh,
see,
there.
I can see him connecting to audio. Jim, okay? And Craig?
Jim and Craig.
Okay, and Jason is gonna kick this off.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. It's a pleasure to have the Finance Committee joining us, members of the Finance Committee joining us this evening, and this has certainly been a topic of discussion over recent weeks, over the meetings with the Finance Committee, is a little bit around the strategic plan. As we head into the final year of this term of council and we are looking to see what kind of a dent we can put into the strategic plan, my ask of council has been that we prioritize which of the strategic initiatives you would like to see the administration focused on for 2022, and then we will look to resource and build the budget around council's priorities. And to your point, Your Worship, there's certainly lots of projects, lots of initiatives that each member of council will have, and we're certainly interested in exploring each and every one of them. My ask, of course, is that those be emailed to us, and we'll look to embed them into the details of the budget. But for today's conversation, my hopes would be that we would spend some time talking about the specific goals of the strategic plan and the service delivery review, and make sure that as we head into 2022 in your final year on this term of council, that the administration is laser focused on the priorities, and that we are able to build the budget around those strategic initiatives. So with that, Your Worship, I suggest the other objective is we would like confirmation on what the tax rate.
Okay, the preliminary budget assumptions.
Yes, so we've provided, thanks to your treasurer, Michelle has put together the preliminary budget assumptions and inputs, and of course, within that, it does note that we have a standing target of not to exceed a 2% tax rate increase. We would like confirmation as we head off to do the grind and the detail work that we're still working towards the 2%, or if there's a different number that council's interested in having a discussion about. We're here to listen and learn and make sure that we're ready to deliver you a budget that meets your needs and expectations.
Thank you. And Jim, I would like you perhaps to kick this off from a Finance Committee point of view. You've obviously had the preliminary budget assumptions as we have, and we'd be interested in what input your committee has at this stage.
Well, thank you, Mayor. We as a committee have not talked about this year's budget in a separate meeting. It was my thought that we would be spending most of our time today on sort of the strategic plan and some of the priorities that perhaps you and council had. Having said that, I'll offer my comments, and then I'll reach out perhaps to a couple of the committee members who wish to chip in as to comments on the assumptions for the 2022 preliminary budget. Let me start by saying it's always a difficult process, and I think your staff do, an exceptional job in trying to balance the needs of the ratepayers, sort of demands of council, and the needs moving forward. They just become ever so much more challenging. I presume that the 5-year capital program that was outlined in 2021 is still intact. I didn't get a copy of that for this particular meeting, so I don't know whether items were not met in 2021 and whether there are ones from 2022 perhaps were moved forward. Any of those are kinds of adjustments in the 5-year capital program. I don't have that information, neither do our committee to my knowledge. So I'm going to move beyond that, but obviously that has an impact with regards to the overall budget and the figures that might roll out as a result, and we just don't have that. Number two, I'd look at the 25 to 30% target or the 5-year budget rollout. It's been reduced, as you're aware, compared to a couple of years ago, down to the 25 to 30% bracket. I would suggest that perhaps that spread be reduced If you look at the total dollars involved in a 25 to 30% spread, you're looking at somewhere around $500,000, which is a fair discrepancy or discretion, I guess, if you will, with regards to those involved in the budget and the planning. It seems like that should be much narrower a spread, so that you're looking at maybe a couple of 100,000 as opposed to $500,000. Third thing I would mention is that the basic assumptions with regards to the CPI at 3.7% in Ontario, Canada at 3.7%, Ontario at 3.5%. It's based on July, and it's difficult. I understand that. I get that. Certainly, if you listen to the feds and you listen to Canada, the feds being in the United States and Canada, that this inflation that we're seeing at those levels now is probably going to be transitory. No one knows for sure, but we're early days. If we're basing our budgetary expectations on a CPI of 3.5%, we're far out. We have 6 months to go to see where that's going to roll out. So I understand it's difficult, and somebody's going to push back and say, what else do you expect me to use? But I think that it's going to require some modification or the capability of being adaptability, having some ability to adapt as you move into the December period before the budget is passed. And the last thing I would say on it before, I think, as Jason alluded to at the introduction, was we're going to spend some time on the strategic plan. There's nothing in this assumptions, I don't think, that target specifically initiatives related to the strategic plan. So that would lead one to believe that there's no money available to implement the strategic plan. And I don't think any of us believe that to be true or want that to be true. And we can get into the discussion with regards to the strategic plan as we move forward. But when I look at the goals in budget 2022, I guess, they're the same goals as 2021 and the same goals as 2019. I don't have, our council has not seen sort of an update as to what's been accomplished, what hasn't been accomplished. And so I think we were really looking forward to this meeting where we can hear what council perhaps wishes to highlight, because we only have one more year in their term, in order that we can zero in on a few initiatives. You're not going to get the whole plan done. A few initiatives that are a priority for council and vis-a-vis council to the ratepayers, and we can help try and fine tune it so they get implemented and done. And I don't mean to say that council hasn't been working on those things. It's just not in a neat bundle that you could say, here's what we did, here's what we didn't do, here's what we need to do. And I hope we get a chance to talk about that. Lastly, I will say, and then I will ask for comments from my committee, our committee. There's nothing in here about excess revenues. It's all on the expenditure side. Are there any assumptions with regards to excess revenues vis-a-vis the operating season that Seguin had this year? Last year, we were blessed with, I forget how many, 100,000, 150,000, I forget what the figure exactly was, but there was some excess revenue there. COVID lingered on, I think, longer than anybody anticipated it would. Did that have an impact? Certainly it had an impact, both expenditures and revenues, but did it come out on balance in favor of Seguin? I don't see it in here. And so this is all an expense side of things and doesn't deal with anything extraordinary as far as revenues. My comment, Mayor, thank you. Maybe if I don't want to belabor or take too much time, but maybe if I can just quickly ask, I see Craig here. I'm not sure if any other committee members, they're not showing up on my screen.
No, I think Craig is the only other member of your committee here, so Craig, we welcome any comments from you, and then I'd like to ask our treasurer, Michelle, to respond to some of the comments. Craig, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thanks, Jim. The only other comment that I'd suggest is the budget target is a maximum 2% tax rate increase. And consistent with our message in prior years, we'd encourage the township and staff to work within a 0% increase, find operating efficiencies or whatever other means you can realize to get to that goal of a 0% tax increase.
Michelle, do you have anything to add or perhaps reply to Mr. Beatty?
Hi, good afternoon. This is just our preliminary budget. Like, these are the basic assumptions that we're using right now. Some of this is here for information. I mean, obviously a CPI of 3.7% is not something that we expect is going to continue on for the rest of the year, because we know it came from a few things that happened back in 2020. So a lot of this is just information. With respect to the tie-in to the strategic plan, there are a lot of things in the capital budget that are specific to the strategic plan. And if you recall, when we did pass the budget last year, each individual line was tied to either the service delivery review or the strategic plan. And again, we'll be doing that again this year. I expect that Jason will probably be reporting to council on the results of a lot of our programs and what we did achieve in the capital budget with the strategic plans. But again, this is strictly information. So.
Thank you. In the absence of anything else, I'm going to ask that we go around the council table in order of our wards to review your strategic priorities. So I'm going to ask Councillor Moffat, and I see your hand up, but I'm also going to ask you to lead off.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I had already provided Jason with my priorities in terms of, or based on our strategic plan. And just to go back to Jim's comment, I look at the strategic plan goals, and I wouldn't say they're all capital in nature, but I would say that livability is something that we're working on with regards to our trails management plan. We're also working through the official plan. We're working through in terms of climate change. So just in terms of goal one, we've done some stuff with respect to that. And I wouldn't say that we are, all the way through in any of those aspects, but certainly we have made progress, just as an example. And I echo what Michelle said, that I envision some document coming forward tying in the work that we've done to our strategic plan and what we've done over the last year or even the last 3 years. So there's only a couple of things that I'm going to hit on in terms of priorities. And the first one is the roads infrastructure, and really focused in on summer seasonal roads and ensuring that we're moving those forward. We have still several of them left to be done, in my view, and I share this with Councillor Coles, that there's an economic driver behind converting seasonal roads to year-round roads, where there is a significant number of residents that would love to move to the township, rebuild a 2-season or 3-season home and make it into a 4-season, sell what they have somewhere else and move here. So that is a huge economic driver in moving those roads. And I would say, Ferris Road is one that has 51 residents that live on it. And there's a significant number of them that would easily move to off of Ferris Road if the issue is resolved. And I'm hopeful in discussions with Peter Koppisch that we are moving towards resolving that. The other one, again, I put on my chartered accounting hat and I say fiscal responsibility. But I've always said, and Craig is, someone who I've known for several years, if we deliver services and we deliver stuff to residents, it's I think that message and that communication is important to show we are fiscally responsible, but we're also delivering to them. And the last one that I'm going to just touch on, or last two sort of touch on that kind of connected, is human resources and customer service. Those are, to me, are paramount to moving our township forward and working for the residents and delivering what we should be delivering. So I'll pass it there. Like I said, I've already sent these off to Jason, so I'll pass the baton to others. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Coles, now as we go through this, Michelle and Jason, if you have specific questions of each councillor, chime in or put your hand up so that I acknowledge that you want to chime in. But otherwise, we'll move to Ward 2 and Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Mayor, and fellow councillors. I totally agree with most of all of what Daryl said. In fact, my objectives for the coming year are, in fact, to have a budget that supports local economic development, that would encourage people to be here on a 12-month basis to both live and recreate for 12 months of the year. It's good for the region, it's good for Seguin Township, and I think we're all better off if the area is inhabited on a year-round basis and people recreate. They come here to snowmobile or to cross-country ski, ice skate, whatever it is they want to do. But we have to facilitate that. If that's going to happen, we have to make sure our roads are up to snuff, and there's off-road parking in the wintertime. One of the issues that we found historically is that people would come, but there was no place for them to park their snowmobile trailers and their vehicles because they live on private roads. And I know we've made some move to accommodate off-road parking, which I frankly really appreciate. And I can tell you, my constituents are ecstatic about the off-road parking we have available. It's all in terms of economic development. And I think that's one of the fundamentals. The only other thing I would comment, and Craig Reith, I hate to say this, but I am not an advocate of zero budget increases for the simple reason that our economy inflates every year. We award tax increase or salary increases to our staff every year for all kinds of good reasons, because things cost more. So I think we need to be reasonable, but I would never advocate for zero-based increases, because I just think we then have to find ways of not serving our customers as well. And efficiencies are one thing, but if we have to cut back on the service that some people already think is limited, then that's a disservice to our constituents. So I think we really need to be careful how we couch these things. And when inflation is, if it is at 3.7 or 3.5, whatever it is, and we're trying to do zero, what gives? Something has to give. That's my concern. Okay, so those are my issues. I've sent my report to Jason as well. So.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne. Councillor Osborne, can you hear me? It looks like perhaps.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm here. Thank you, Mayor. I'm not frozen.
We are
You're
having
not
difficulty
frozen to
hearing you.
me. Can you see me moving?
No, and your voice is breaking up.
Is that better?
It's a little bit
I've had
better.
that happen when Jim. I've had that happen when Jim. I think our Zoom is messed up because Jim Beatty's comments were broken up to me too. My bandwidth's okay here. I don't know what it's like there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, everybody else seems to be fine. So let's try it, but if not, I'm going to suggest that you rejoin in. But let's see how it goes.
Okay. Do you hear me okay now?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I agree with both councillors ahead of me, Moffat and Coles, on their objectives and wants and needs. Specifically to roads, my concern is the maintenance of our existing roads, because as we plow through trying to create more year-round roads, we can't lose sight of maintaining our existing roads. And I specifically mentioned Tally Ho Road, which has been an excellent road since 2008, is starting to break up in several places. It needs attention before it becomes very expensive. I continue to harp on our waste management issues. I'm still at long last waiting for a report on a fine schedule for contraventions to that. It seems to be a slow moving task. You still hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. The recent boat launch problem where we closed Tally Ho Boat Launch indicates that a need, and I'm working with Jason on possibilities for that. It just goes to show how dependent our residents come on the services we offer now. If you have a service that you take away, you're going to get pushed back. And as well, when it comes to HR matters, I find our internally, and I guess this is a criticism, we need to start support customers, our residents, our ratepayers, the people that pay the salaries of everyone in that building, as well as counselors, and we need to start upholding service to those customers, getting back to them, showing an interest, doing the job that they were tasked to do. And that's an issue for Jason to deal with, I know. And I can see vast improvements already. More. The last thing I would suggest is that in terms of budgeting, the impact market value assessment that's, I believe, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, will happen in 22, will impact our assessment and therefore our taxation. So when it comes to looking at zero-based budget in the face of salaries and other escalating CPI issues, we have to keep in mind that our economy, just from a real estate point of view, is growing at an extra high rate of speed in the last couple of years. And I think when budgeting, we keep that in mind so that we don't continue to have too large of surpluses. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner, Ward 4.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I as well am, very pleased. And I think we need to keep focused on our seasonal roads initiative. I think we've come a long way in a couple of years. We're giving those roads the attention they deserve and warrant. A lot of my concerns primarily have been with roads, road maintenance, and then capital projects. And I think we're well on the way to having, maintenance in one bucket and road reconstruction in another bucket. And I think we need to develop, I would like to see a standard of care for our road maintenance so that, we're not waiting for a service inquiry, that we're keeping our roads to a consistent standard. And I think that's important. I would also like to see our road strategy revisited and perhaps the assessment made on some other key factors such as safety and road subbase condition. As well, I would like to, parcel of the strategic plan, I think quality of life, certainly recreation deals heavily in that. I think we've sort of been able to demonstrate over the last couple months, or I hope we have, that we can do a lot with a little if we put our minds to it. And I think that, it's pointed out to me, our showpiece trail, the Rose Point Trail, it's getting into the, it's getting a little tired in places, could stand a little tune up. Seguin Trail's coming along, and I think we'll progress quite nicely to the east side of the township with a rebuild by the end of 2022. And again, we need to develop a standard of care for these trails, and what's that standard we're going to maintain them to. And for that point, I think that I would like to see included in the capital budget some sort of grading tractor for the trails. I think that, as well, I think, we've done some good work with fire and continuing to do so. Again, a priority for me is how do we fix the excessive costs managing waste that people aren't being conscientious about disposing of, disposing in the wrong place. That's something I think that needs to be addressed as well. So all in all, with the comments about service delivery and customer service, I think we've really gone a long way over the last year in improving that. I think Seguin's very slowly starting to lose the reputation of being a difficult place to do business in. All in all, I think I as well know Mr. Rees well, and he knows I would love to see a 0% tax increase, but I don't think, sitting in this seat, I just, as long as the 2% is a maximum, we beat 2% last year. We were lower. I would like to see us beat it again, because to Mr. Beatty's point, we've experienced very, very high levels of building value in this township. We've enjoyed high levels of building value. Those buildings get finished. That's an increase in our assessment base, and that translates into an increase of revenue. And I think I'd like to see what that increase is and have that incorporated into the budget as we move forward. And I haven't submitted these to Jason yet, but I will in the next little while. So thank you. That's what I have to say.
Thank you very much. Councillor Collins, Ward 5.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Well, I guess the first thing I'd like to say is that I would like to see that the 10-year infrastructure improvement strategy that was passed in 2020 move that those funds are moved forward accordingly, especially when there are capital projects that were due in 2021, and that the same amounts of monies be moved to do that capital roads project in 2022. It used to be in our rural township like our own, it used to be our main objectives was always roads, garbage, and fire. Well, guess what? There's a new kid on the block, and that's broadband. And broadband initiatives, we still have to maintain those initiatives, and we have to move those initiatives forward. Even we don't differentiate between Bell or Cogeco or Lakeland or Vianet. We'll work with them all, because our main objective is to make sure that everyone in our township has high-speed internet. I like what Councillor Moffat and Councillor Cole said about our seasonal roads, moving those along as a priority as well. As Councillor Moffat has stated, there's more people moving up here and living off these seasonal roads that actually are owned by Seguin Township that needs to be maintained on a yearly basis. I'm also hoping and keeping my fingers crossed that our initiative moving North Seguin Estates in housing takes shape sooner than later. And that is with the property that all the rural property that is south of the old carriage road boundary line between Parry Sound and Seguin. And that's important because we all know housing is critical if we are even thinking of promoting economic development and moving new business into town, because they need a place to live. Everyone needs a place to live, and an affordable place to live. I guess I've been moving Ward 5 along pretty well, I think. We've got, our lightings in place, I guess you could say our roads are in pretty good shape, except for Star Lake Road, which is the Capital Roads project that we postponed till 2022. But I guess with the housing, the roads, there's only one other thing that I'd like to see implemented in Oroville is our community center. It needs a little bit of work done, especially our fascia boards along the community center. They're started to rotting out, and we don't want any water damage entering inside the center. So other than that, that's all I would like to see. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. I am delighted that you put broadband as a priority there.
Thank you, Mayor.
It is essential service as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Mayor.
And we've got a long way to go to get it to every single house.
Absolutely.
Councillor Vincent, Ward 6.
Hi. Okay, I agree with Art and Daryl with the seasonal maintenance roads. I would love to see that continue as it's going and more seasonal roads become year-round roads. High-speed internet is until everybody has it, it's not finished, because I was just talking to some people today. I was working at another spot and they were talking about being the in-between, that they don't have service at their house at all. They're paying high dollars for their service. So I really think that's important. Recreational trails. I think the more we can do with trails. I was just in Prince Edward Island and oh my goodness, the trails are unbelievable. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles of maintained trails. And they have a grader, I'm pretty sure, because they're beautiful. Anyway, my main priority would be the community hall renovation. The community hall is a historical building in Rosso. The community hall was built to honor the veterans that served in World War I. They also honor all of the vets that have come to us and fought wars since then. The community hall deserves to be a fully operating community hall, and it will be 100 years old in 2024. We have a committee that is willing to raise money for the community hall, but I would like to see it stay in the 2022 budget, maybe be split up between the 3 years, the money that's already accounted for there. It's really important to me. That is my main priority, is to make sure that our community hall, as we grow and as everybody talks in this whole thing about economic development, there are more people living in Rosso, for sure, full time, and more people moving up here. There isn't probably a place that you can buy in the township. So I think the facility has to be to a quality that it can be used as a proper facility. And I believe that that is my first priority, is to get that done and to keep the honoring the veterans as we did up to now. It is a historical building, so there's lots I can do at the federal government level to help with that project. But That's all I have to say. The seasonal roads are really important. High-speed internet, getting everybody with it. I mean, I know we're doing great things with it, but everybody needs to have high-speed internet at a reasonable cost. And the other one I'll just touch on is waste management. Like there's lots of people talking to me about waste right now, and I don't know what can be done. I know that Peter does a great job, but I don't know if things can be done to improve that as well. Anyway, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to weigh in a little bit. I guess if somebody asked me, I didn't like having to pick between the three strategic priorities, because I actually think we have them completely intertwined with one another. But if you made me pick, it would be community and economic prosperity. And in there is broadband for each and every house, the expanded business park, the wellness center, increased housing, just like Councillor Collins mentioned. If we're going to grow economically, we've got to have a place for people to live. People of all salary ranges need to have housing options. And I think in that economic prosperity comes the road infrastructure and improvements that will support more industry, bigger year-round homes, and a growing population. My next priority would be the community experience. But again, I have trouble saying it's got a different list than the economic prosperity, because I think if you're economically healthy and growing, the community experience will come with it, and it'll be a better place to live. I do think that customer service excellence has come a long way, but it's got a ways to go, and I think our staff know that, and that's going to tie right into economic priorities or growth. I do think we need to tackle somehow our roadway infrastructure issue, and Jason and I have talked about this. I've talked about this with Peter Coppage. The building that's going on is different than the building that went on 30 years ago, and it may be time to, I don't know whether we call it a development fee or a roadway fee or something. We need to have a way to build our roads back better and for more big traffic. And I'm hoping staff will come to us with suggestions. And I'm not going to say that environmental leadership comes last, but I think it comes in everything. And I hope that as we make decisions in all of the economic and community experience, we do it through the lens of being an environmental leader. And so with that, it's kind of the umbrella to me for everything else. So I think we've had some good ideas here. I've got some pages to send to Jason. I wanted to hear what other people had to say. I do want to say that this council and the staff has accomplished one heck of a lot in 3 years. Just to give you an idea, we've brought about $4 million, we and ISPs have brought about $4 million into the township that we didn't have before for broadband. And that was people writing proposals to fund. We brought in $8 million to enhance the airport and the business park. We're just about to look at $23.5 million for the wellness center. Holy smokes, that's a lot of money that is coming into the township of Seguin and West Parry Sound that wasn't here when you took office. So congratulations. And I do think we're well on the way to customer service with a CAO who's got a really can-do attitude. Yeah, we're not there yet, but we're getting there. And I think if we can just tackle this fourth year in an optimistic, and let's get going, let's get these projects finished, let's stay optimistic, and let's deliver value to our ratepayers. A point of tax increase is easy to sell if they're getting value. And I really believe we can justify that if we continue on the path we're on. So that's my 2 cents worth. 0 tax increases, nice to have, but people are asking us to do more. And to do more, we may have to spend some more. but we do have to prove the value. So, Mr. CAO, did we give you what you wanted, kind of?
Thank you, Your Worship, members of the council, finance committee. That's some really valuable feedback. I think the joys of having this live streamed on YouTube will allow me to go back and try and decipher not only what I wrote in my chicken scratch, but and I'll be able to pause and rewind and make sure I capture everything. But I think we heard a lot of consistency around sort of the infrastructure side of things, the customer service side, focus on service excellence and efficiencies. And there's a lot of opportunities in my view as we sort of face some of the challenges, both financial and otherwise, to innovate and find creative ways to solve our challenges. Obviously, the housing matter is one that's going to take some very unique thought processes on how we get there. But I think we heard you loud and clear, and frankly, now the heavy lifting really gets going for the administration as we start to take the philosophies that were discussed this evening and turn them into realities that we'll present to you in a budget. And I will just want to say thanks again, Council, and I want to thank in advance the Finance Committee, because I know this is something that we've been talking about for a few weeks or a few months, and I know they're eager to get their feet into the mud and start working on this with us collaboratively so we can bring back to Council and to the ratepayers a responsible budget that delivers that community experience in a fiscally responsible way. So thank you, Your Worship. We look forward to discussions over the coming months with this new format. We'll be back in short order with the first series of discussions around the 2022 budget. So thank you for that.
Okay, can I just ask one kind of process question, and it may be to Michelle, it may be to you, but looking at the capital projects that were listed as major 2022, and I recognize this is, as Mr. Beattie said, direct carryover from last year. But for sure, on the capital, you better put the pool in there. You better put some internet in there. I heard a request for a trail grader, but my biggest question is, can you capitalize and amortize the road work like a capital equipment? I don't know whether you can in municipal budgeting.
No. Short answer.
Thank
No.
you. That was my, why not? But that's just the rule.
That's, yeah, municipal and generally accepted accounting principles for public sector, no.
Okay. Boo. But thank you for the answer.
I was pleased Michelle turned her camera on for that answer. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. Thank you very much. You've got your work cut out for you, and I do want to remind you that we are in a new business process, so you're going to hear back from staff many more times than you have in the past. So they'll be back on our doorstep, I think. Thank you, Jim and Craig. Councillor Osborne, you have questions?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Are we leaving this preliminary budget assumption and input? Are we leaving this topic?
Yes.
Oh, I had a couple of questions on the 22 capital projects as amended.
Okay, they are just a carryover from last year. They still have to be paid.
I realize they're a carryover, Mayor, but I have some questions.
Okay,
on two items.
Go ahead.
First, the replacement of fire, is that SCBA gear? What does that stand for? Could Don answer that?
Chief Hood, can you explain what
Sorry. Yeah, I pushed the wrong button. SCBA is your breathing apparatus, Councilor Osborne.
Okay, the tanks. All right, thank you. And the other item was Russell Memorial Hall, $488,000. Could you explain to me what is entailed in that project? Like we did a recent renovation with kitchen, washrooms, library, elevator back in, I'm not sure, 3-4 years ago. What is this $488,000, the biggest ask here, budgeted item, apparently budgeted. What is it comprised of?
Counselor
And,
Fitson?
and who costed it and for what?
Well, I can answer that. When I came on to council, that was done by the previous councillor for our ward. There was a costing done on the renovations for the hall to make it a properly working hall. The renovations, the things that were done to it were to make it accessible. That money was given by the government and that was mandated. We had no choice but to make those, the elevator, the washroom, that all had to be done in order to use that hall, to make it accessible through the accessibility project from the government. So that's got nothing to do with money that came from the township. That's money that was the renovations we had to do to make it accessible for wheelchairs and et cetera. So the project is on the books at the town. You can see where the money, where the somebody did an architectural drawing. So it's all been done and it's sitting there. We're just waiting now to hear back from the architect about how it's changed. It was done by Jack Hepworth before I started council. It was put on the budget when I started the first year I was on council. It was put onto the 2022 budget.
And there is a concept design that
Yes, there is.
seen a couple of times. It's not a detailed architectural drawing, but it's concept design to bring the Rossell Memorial Hall kitchens and serveries up to the standard of Foley, Orville, and just to basically get it up to the same level as the other municipalities. I see.
Yep.
Do you have another question?
May I supplementary, please?
Yep. One more.
Okay, so I remember that's years back. We had those conceptual drawings about moving the kitchen and narrowing some spaces, taking stages out. There was 3 or 4 different options. I don't know that we ever decided on an option to go forward with. It was all like you said. And I wonder,
Can't hear you again.
how is this in the 22 budget when this council has not decided on even the concept or how to proceed on it? I know that I spoke to the CAO earlier and asked what is this $500,000 for? And I couldn't really get an answer, and I understand why, because we never did decide on which concept to use or whether to use a concept.
You're breaking up, but I'm going to ask the CAO Jason to respond.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. I think what you're seeing, the funding there is a placeholder. There's no commitment to that money just yet. However, we are, Dominique's here. She can speak a little bit about it if she'd like, but we are sort of revisiting some of those plans and the justification behind the numbers, the retrofits, what the needs are being evaluated at this time. And of course, we will come back to council. We'll go through the RCA. I'm not going to get it right.
RCA
Committee. Thank you, and make sure that the committee's engaged in a way that's meaningful and a part of the decisions that are being recommended to council. So while this money is there as a placeholder and has been budgeted for many years, there will be plenty and ample opportunity for council to weigh in before any decisions are made. And I would invite Dominique to just add in if I missed anything there.
No, you're correct. It's actually currently with the architect for updates right now. So she is going to update all 3 options. Option 1 was what council has suggested, but there was no resolution at the time. So it will come back to council once I have the updates with all 3 options again.
Yeah.
Councillor Moffat, I see your hand up.
Mayor.
Okay, one more comment, Councillor Osborne, on this, please. Go ahead, Councillor Osborne, last comment. As the other councillors are waiting.
Okay, so we're looking for an update. We're looking for an I'm trying to talk.
Can't
Do I have
hear
the floor? Do I have the floor?
Yes, you do. You
Hello?
have the floor.
Hello?
We're all waiting to hear from you.
Okay. So the architects are doing an update on the options. So is this a 22 22 budget item? Is the build going to happen in 22? I remember it was slated to be in a 5-year window, right? Is it slated for reconstruction or renovation in 2022? That's my question.
As outlined by the CAO, it is a placeholder at this point in time, and that is all it is at this point in time for 2022.
Pending a resolution. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Moffat.
Maybe I raised my hand too early, but I was gonna say that any of these projects, as we've seen under Jason's administration, all of them are gone with a sober second look and a review. We've seen that in the arena. We've seen that in Star Lake Road. We've seen that in all areas. So I expect the same with these carryover projects. And I'm reiterating what the mayor and Jason has said. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just reiterating what Councillor Osborne has said. Yeah, it's just kind of like put on a wish list back in I think 2018, just prior to Councillor Hepworth leaving. But that's fine. I mean, but what everybody needs to know is that there was quite a bit more done to the Rosso Center, the Rosso Memorial Hall, than just an entranceway. I mean, the whole place was gutted, and there was a new kitchen put in, new washrooms put in, a library put in. There was the whole downstairs was renovated, and and it actually went over budget. I mean, it actually went over budget. I think it went up to about $450,000 back then. So I was just another 488 would put it close to $1 million in just the last 5-6 years, and that's a lot of money. So anyway, glad it's on a wish. That's
it's on a wish list. It's a placeholder, as is everything else on the list, and staff will come back to us having heard our priorities. So nobody's spending any money tonight. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, and we're going to move on to staff reports. Item 9. And Michelle, you have a financial, oh, sir, I have to first do this. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda and the addendum for September 7th, 2021 meeting of Council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So move, Mayor.
You
hear me okay?
Yeah, seconded by Councillor Fellner. Thank you. All in favor of receiving staff reports? Thank you. And I will remind you that in addition to A and B, which are there, we have a C, which refers to the arena condenser. So, Michelle, you're on with a financial update.
Yes, this is our regular monthly financial update. Again, we continue to monitor and track all of our revenues and all of our expenditures. We're on budget generally in almost all of our departments. You will see at the end of the year, there will be ups and downs within individual departments as we deal with staffing issues, for example. But as I've said in the report, we are plugging along.
Thank you. Does anybody have, Councillor Collins, do you have a question for Michelle?
Oh, no, I'm
Okay.
fine with it.
Anybody else got a question for Michelle? Thank you, Michelle. I like these reports that keep giving us more money. So keep them up. Thank you. And I think, Michelle, you're probably still on. I'm going to read a motion that as per the recommendation of staff report number TR 2021-012, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the Seguin Township COVID-19 mandatory vaccination policy attached to this resolution as Schedule A. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I'll move that motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Finson?
I second that.
Thank you. And I see a hand from Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess there's one outstanding item that I had for Michelle earlier today on this, but we've all received correspondence from one of our firefighters, and I'm just wondering if there's any follow-up or anything required with regards to that that we need to address before we pass a motion for this policy.
I doubt if Michelle has received a copy of it. It didn't come through until almost 3 o'clock, so it didn't make the addendum, but Jason has a copy. I don't believe it will change anything. He had already discussed this issue with that particular individual, so I'll make sure that Michelle gets a copy of what got sent to all of council, but I don't think it will change anything, will it, Jason? No.
So my earlier question, and Michelle, if you don't want to address it now, my question was in terms of contractors. We may be using contractors for our equipment or whatever that it may be offsite. I'm just wondering how this policy would fit in, or how we would be addressing that.
Through your worship, I'll take a stab at it, Councillor Moffat.
Thank
Michelle and I
you.
did have a chat briefly this afternoon about it. The policy speaks to people working within facilities within the township boundaries. We recognize that all too often equipment or resources are sent out, and of course anything that's coming back where staff will be interacting with a piece of equipment, as an example, would be subject to the protocols that are in place for sanitization and cleaning. So those protocols are still in place. We can't necessarily control everything out there, but what we are trying to do is make sure that the policy reflects those that are working in the township work environment. So contractors are included, but to your point, anything coming from an outside agency would go through standard cleaning and sanitization processes before it was put back into service.
And sorry, Mayor, just as a follow-up, so if staff are also attending to that location that we don't have confirmation, there's policies and procedures that we're following with regards to interaction at that location.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Protocols have been in place since almost the beginning of COVID.
Yep. No, I just want to confirm that we're still on track and there's no dropping of them. That's all. Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the mandatory vaccination policy? Thank you, and that is carried. And in your addendum, you have a message from Dominique, and I'll read the motion, that as per the recommendation of staff report number CS-FC 2021-005, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby authorize staff to have Black and McDonald immediately replace the condenser at the Humphrey Community Center for an estimated cost of $70,212 plus HST. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And Dominique, do you want to, your report in the addendum was very comprehensive, but I don't know that everybody had that much time to digest it, so perhaps you can give us a top line.
Sure. Good evening, Council. Yes, unfortunately, our condenser did fail a couple of weeks ago. We can keep it running, and we do have Black & McDonald keeping an eye on it, but I would like to err on the side of caution and try and order this new condenser that was slated in the 2022 budget now as soon as possible. As the report states, there's a long delivery time of possibly up to 15 weeks. So if I can have approval tonight to get that process going, that would be the best way to go. Otherwise, we may have to do some really quite expensive repairs to the older condenser. It makes more sense to put that new one in place as soon as we can. I can certainly take any questions if you have any.
Councillor Moffat?
Just one quick question. This one was planned for, it looks like maybe 10 years. Do we have an expected lifespan of something a little bit less on the next one? So we've got some new information for budgeting and planning purposes, I guess.
For the newer condenser?
Yeah, yes, because the old one was to last 10 years and
That's
it
right.
seems it didn't quite make it. So maybe we've got a 5 or 8 year plan.
Yeah. I can certainly talk to Black and McDonald about that. They are roughly around 10 years. It's unfortunate that it happened quicker than we thought it would, but certainly we can look at that and maybe put it in a little bit sooner.
Okay, thank you.
And I do want everyone to realize that in the 2022 budget, $100,000 was actually allocated for this, and Dominique is asking for permission to order at $70,000 plus HST. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of authorizing Dominique to proceed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dominique. We have a draft resolution. Whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report on June 2nd, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. And whereas the recent discoveries of remains and unmarked graves across Canada have led to increased calls for all levels of government to address the recommendation in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action. And whereas all Canadians and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation. And whereas recommendation number 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called upon the federal government, in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples, to establish as a statutory holiday a national day for truth and reconciliation to ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. And whereas the federal government has announced September 30th, 2021 as the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It'll be called National Orange Shirt Day and a statutory holiday. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby commit to recognizing September 30th, 2021 as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Orange Shirt Day, by sharing the stories of residential school survivors, their families, and communities. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
That's so moved, Mayor.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I second that, Mayor.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, and that's carried. I think you would have all received this in your email. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby authorize the following individuals to attend the Parry Sound Area Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Award being held September 24th, 2020. And it is an evening on the Island Queen. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
Yes, I'll move that motion, Mayor. Thank you.
And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
Are there any people that would like to attend? I already had a ticket. I got sold one a few weeks ago. But, so I am planning to attend. Are there others that would like to attend?
I would like to, but unfortunately I cannot. Being a member of the Chamber of Commerce, it would be obvious that I could, but I cannot because I pre-booked another event that weekend. So,
Anybody else want to go? All right, I will be the. No, Terry, do you want to go?
Sure, I'll go.
it'll be a nice evening.
I suggest you got an email today about it. I suggest you buy the ticket and then expense it. If that's
Okay.
okay, the clerk's office. Okay. Okay, so Mayor McDermott and Councillor Fellner will attend. All in favor? Thank you. Council reports. Let's start with you, Gail, since you were last on the budget thing.
Well, as everybody knows, I've been away, so I'm just going to give a little rundown of my council report from last time. We had an RCAC meeting. We discussed the veterans banners. Craig is looking into it and he thinks he can get them up for this year. If people are, he's working on it as we speak, and he's getting a hold of Pina, and they're hopefully going to move forward with it. And we've talked to all of the suppliers and they can deliver for this year if that's what we want. We discussed a few other things. There was like, there's not going to be no pumpkin festival. There's they're trying to put something together for Christmas. There was a cemetery meeting and they decide on maintaining the 6 most urgent problems at the cemeteries this year. I worked on the Rosso Lake College on the Robert Carew Memorial Trail. I went over and helped out on a Saturday. It was lovely. I met with Peter Simmons, the minister of the Anglican Church. He talked a lot about safety in Rosso, and we discussed some more about plowing the sidewalks. I'm in discussions with Peter. Peter and I are working on that together. Other than that, just a lot of phone calls about the same things, you know, Kojiko, the destruction of property on the lakes within 20 meters of the, outside of the 20 meters of the shoreline. I had an email about the cormorants on the lighthouse in Lake Rosso, and which is owned by Oceans and Fisheries. I have sent a letter asking Oceans and Fisheries if there's anything they can do because it's causing destruction to the lighthouse. They're really destructive birds. So I'm not sure if they can do anything, but they're in charge of the maintenance. So I will ask them and lobby them to see if there's anything we can do to have that stopped. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Basically, there's been no meetings that I've attended. And I know that this month's DSAB meeting has been canceled. So we won't be attending a DSAB meeting until October next month. Other than that, I've just been committing, I receive a lot of calls on a daily basis and just committing to my residents' concerns. That's basically what I've been doing. And it's been a busy summer. It's been a busy summer. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Collins. Councillor Fellner.
I haven't had any meetings since we last met. Again, much the same as Councillor Collins. I've had numerous calls from different constituents about different things and trying to get some resolution for them with the help of staff. Park to park is park to park. Things are moving along. We have entered into a contract with a contractor and ordered the bridge for the Seguin Trail, which we hope will be delivered sometime the end of this month and installed next month. And that's a 110-foot or 120-foot bridge. So that was made possible by the OFSC to park. And other than that, you know, it was a little quieter the last couple of weeks of the summer, but it was a busy summer.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I have recently clearly GM that I both and great concerns of them other than their slight increase in phosphorus levels, which nothing to get too excited about at this point, but they're keeping an eye on it. The Rocky Crest Golf Course has been cooperating with their measurements and their reports. We did have an incident here on Tally Ho Road after the boat launch closure, and I would hope that all of council is steadfast in that closure, regardless of pressures that you may be getting through phone calls. I had a number of phone calls and emails on it. A little rally was held there on Sunday at 2 p.m. OPP attended because there were some vehicles blocking the actual roadway and they were asked to disperse with the vehicles. Basically, it was a family event. There was very few, if any, public showed up from the lake. And Jason and I have been working cooperatively and looking for solutions for whitefish, even though there are interim solutions at other locations. We don't want people to have to go too far with their boat to launch or take out. Other than that, I look forward to further discussions on the pool and how that's going. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a fairly quiet week for me too, unusually, but meetings, the September 25th, there was a Belvedere Board of Management meeting in the morning, and in the afternoon, an ad hoc advisory committee meeting for the West Parry Sound Health Center and the move to the West Parry Sound Health Center. We have sent a letter to the ministry advising them that all the municipalities now have approved returning our license to the ministry, and we have a meeting on the 13th with the ministry on the next steps that we need to follow in terms of that process. So that's happening on the 13th. September the 27th, of course, we were all at the staff barbecue serving the staff. It was very nice to see them all, most of them there at least, and I understand there may have been a couple issues with some food, but well, I'm not quite sure about that, but we'll see. I had a call from Linda West, who I believe is the president of the Parry Sound Rotary Club, about ATVs speeding on the Rose Point Trail. This is a serious issue because not only were they speeding, they were obnoxious in the treatment of people on the trail. And so I will be having a conversation with Peter about additional signage on the trail and lowering the speed limit because they were going way, way too fast, endangering people's lives. They were frightened, in fact. Also some frequent emails and conversations with some staff on Bruce's Trail, which is a private road on municipal property. And an individual who lives on the road keeps digging a trench across the road. And we're not quite sure what to do about it. So I guess I need to talk to Don about giving him a little notice or warning or something so he can cease and desist digging his trenches. It is on municipal property, but it's a private road. So other than that, things are fairly quiet. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say about we were talking about housing earlier, but the Clear Lake Estates project, which is really coming along nicely. I can tell you, in terms of road and road building, they have put in an amazing base to the new road that's going into that project. It's not wide enough yet, but the base is spectacular in terms of durability. It will stand up for years to come. So they've got a stone crusher in there now and putting coarse base down and finishing the top. So it's going to be an amazing project when it's done. 28 residents or possible residents there. That's it. Thanks.
Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I will lead off with echoing your comments with regards to Foley Fall Fair. I participate in the organization and we had about 3 weeks to pull it together. I think everyone did a phenomenal job. I'm really thankful for both you and Jason's participation and assistance in all this. Always good to see a few staff members out, either attending the fair and or helping out off hours. And appreciative Tom McLeod actually came out with his some equipment in order to do some aerial photos. So we got those to share, and really positive vibes and lots of talk about 2022. In terms of activities, back on August 21st, I attended a Lake Association meeting. It was at the Humphrey Gazebo, and a lot of discussion, a lot of road safety. You know, this is concern all around. Talked about the wellness center and a few other things. Several meetings on fair prep, as I've noted. Also on the 26th, I attended the Georgian Bay Forever, a series of webinar called Plastic Waters, just going through and discussing the impact of plastic in the water and how it becomes fine little pieces, and then fish eat it, and then we eat the fish. Also, we had our active trail management subcommittee meeting on the 26th, talking about the Seguin master trail plan, as Art mentioned. We had our barbecue. One comment that Councillor Finson made, Craig presented at the Foley Recreation Committee, so we're looking at trying to tie in some of the individuals that are on the Foley side. I don't know if we're splitting hairs. I don't know that we split hairs. I think it's collectively where there's a few members of the committee that we're trying to get some information to be able to extend the banners here to Foley and possibly into Orville and Humphrey as well. So it's a great initiative, and we will endeavor to help out. Councillor Finson.
Craig will get in touch with all of you, because he has you all in mind.
Yeah. So I guess we were the first off the mark, so that was good. Also in your council package, you'll see on page 127, information on the Muskoka Watershed Council and all the stuff that I've been participating in that. We have a couple more meetings this week. So lots going on with the Watershed Council in terms of moving forward with community roundtable and getting things, try to write the watershed a little bit better. Similar to other councillors, several calls on roads, road safety, internet, public works, building planning matters. So just your, I guess your typical couple of weeks in terms of Q&A from residents. That's all I have, Mayor and Council. I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Okay, well, briefly, most of you were at most of the events I was at. August 26th, Rod Osborne and I attended the Clear Lake Annual General Meeting, and they have very strong attendance, probably stronger because they're on Zoom, but they do poll their members regularly before their executive ever speaks out. That was nice to see. We had the council lunch for staff, and thank you to everybody who did your share in cutting tomatoes, pickles, everything else, and desserts. I really appreciated the help and the cooking. I hope it's the first of many things that council can do to interact with staff. And some of us afterwards that were doing the dishes talked about possibly a Christmas dinner. So when we get closer, maybe we'll revisit how we can interact. September 4th, which was Saturday, was a busy day. The Lake Rosso North Association had a board meeting to which I was invited. And basically they were asking what's the staff position on short-term rentals. Jason and I had met with them ages ago, and we kind of said whether there would be a staff report. So they want to know, and their point was that many of the property owners are starting to sign contracts for next year. And so we need to get in front of that. So that's just a comment. And their other one was the overnight parking at the Rosso docks. Then midday was at the Foley Fall Fair, and it was nice to see some staff there. I want to know if Debbie got her birdhouse built. She was asking how young you had to be to get the people to help her build a birdhouse. So I don't know whether she got one or not, but we'd like to see it if she did. And then later in the afternoon was the Sugar Lake Corn Roast, which kind of substituted for their annual meeting, but it was more a social event, and it was well attended. And again, these lake associations, for many of them that are having in-person meetings, it's the first time they've gotten together with their neighbors in 18 months. So they're all enthusiastic participators. And then this morning, Jason and I had a pretty nice start to the day, touring some of the Muskoka Land Trust properties on North Lake Joe, those of you that were on council earlier, and then we did one on Wagama Island. I'm not sure I've got the pronunciation right. And they're just looking for the township to be aware of what they're doing. They've raised a lot of money, and they're trying to protect the shorelines. And that's what I've been up to. So we have a motion to receive agendas and minutes. Do you have something to report? Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, I didn't mean to, just dawned on me that perhaps it'd be a good opportunity to share with council, and more specifically with the ratepayers, that just this last couple weeks, we've launched a brand new website called letsconnectseguin.ca. It is a new communications platform that Township staff have worked very diligently over the last few weeks to launch in a hurry. We're using it for a couple of key projects, specifically the pool project. There's information on it right now about broadband, the trail strategy. This will become a new place for ratepayers to be able to log on and have what I would call really meaningful two-way communication between staff and the ratepayers. On the site, you'll have access to all sorts of information related to projects, forums, places, ideas, stories, surveys, polls. It's actually quite an excellent opportunity for folks to join the website, register yourself, and participate in a two-way communication with staff around any of the key projects that you're interested in learning a little bit more about. And I know, it just went live late last week. I know there's been, like any new forum, when you put it up, there's going to be some learning and some technical challenges, but we're working through them and making sure that folks are able to gain access and participate in the surveys or in learning about their projects.
Okay, I see a question from Councillor Moffat, but for any of you that haven't used it, the link was included in Jason's memo that he sent to all of us on the 2nd of September, right at the end of his email. It's letsconnectseguin.ca. So you should sign up and register. Councillor Moffat.
Not a question, just to support that. We received a few hundred of those postcards just in advance of the fair. They were given out. And I actually received an email from a resident today who had picked up a card at the Foley Fall Fair and had gone through and was very impressed with the presentation on the Wellness Center and appreciative of all the work that we're doing. So I just wanted to pass those along, and thanks, Jason, for the reminder.
Yeah, and there are cards to be picked up here if you'd like some yourself. I have some in my purse, and every time I see anybody from any place in West Parry Sound, they don't just have to be Seguin residents, give it to them. And some of the local businesses are carrying them. Councillor Osborne.
Yes, Mayor. A question of Jason. Yeah, great website, Jason. I think it's going to be successful. Is there a plan to get the word out through tax bills, newsletter, or mailing of those postcards to residents so that they're aware of it?
Through your worship, we certainly will be making all efforts to reach out to our ratepayers through every means possible. I don't believe there's a tax bill until January at this point, but we will use every other forum we can to get information into folks' hands.
Thank you.
Yeah, and any of the councillors that run regular newsletters, please put them in your newsletters, the link. I have a motion that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee agendas and minutes and the correspondence as presented on the agenda and the addendum for the September 7th, 2021 meeting of Council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move the motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
All in favor of receiving the report? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 6:12 p.m. in order to address matters pertaining to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, labor relations or human or employee negotiations, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations or a person, group of persons, or organizations, and this relates to the West Parry Sound Recreation and Cultural Center. A position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board with the proposed development, about the proposed development update and the West Parry Sound Recreation and Cultural Center. Could I have a motion to move into closed from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, and all in favor? Thank you. So it takes a couple minutes to get the technicalities organized to be in closed.